Picture this. It's the middle of the night. Your house is quiet. Everyone's asleep. The only light in the room is a faint glow from the moon coming through your window. Then you hear something. A sound outside. Maybe footsteps. You sit up for a second listening. Then, a crack. Wood splinters somewhere in the house. A door, maybe a window. And before you even have time to process what's happening, someone's already inside. In the early 1800s, people in one American city started living with that exact fear. Because someone was moving through the streets at night, breaking into homes and attacking women while they slept. He didn't steal anything. He didn't even leave any clues. He just appeared, killed, and vanished. The newspapers gave him a name that people would remember for generations. The Servant Girl Annihilator. And to this day, no one knows who he was. To understand this story, you have to picture Austin, Texas in the 1880s, because it didn't look anything like it does today. No skyscrapers, no tech companies, no music festivals. Back then, Austin was a small frontier city, maybe 10,000 people total. Dusty streets, horse-drawn wagons, wooden homes scattered through neighborhoods that faded quickly in open land. At night, the streets were dark. Most homes used oil lamps, and once those were out, the city disappeared into shadows. Now, inside many of these homes, especially wealthier ones, there was usually someone else living there too. Servant girls. These were young women, often teenagers or in their early 20s, who worked for the household. They cooked meals, cleaned, washed clothes, took care of whatever the family needed. Most of them were African American women working in a time when opportunities were extremely limited. And because they were servants, they usually slept somewhere separate from the family. Sometimes in a small back room, sometimes in a little structure behind the house, which meant if someone broke in during the night, they would usually be the first person the intruder found. And in December of 1884, someone started taking advantage of exactly that. The first murder happened quietly. Late one night, a servant girl named Molly Smith was sleeping in her bed. Sometime during the night, someone slipped inside. There was no loud struggle, no alarm raised. The attacker walked into her room and struck her in the head with an axe, over and over and over again. By the time anyone discovered what happened, it was already too late. Police arrived, they searched the area, but there were no witnesses, no stolen items, no clear motive. The killer had simply come in, killed, and disappeared. At first, people thought it might be personal, maybe someone who knew her, maybe a domestic dispute. But then a few months later, another servant girl was attacked. This time, the pattern started to become clear. The killer moved at night. He entered homes quietly, often through a back door or a window. He attacked victims while they were still asleep. He didn't seem to bring weapons with him either. Instead, he grabbed whatever was nearby. Axes, knives, iron rods, pieces of wood, whatever he could find. And every time he struck, the violence was overwhelming, brutal, fast. And then just like before, he vanished. As the attacks continued, the city started to panic. Austin had never seen anything like this before. Violent crimes happened, sure, but someone creeping through neighborhoods at night, randomly murdering people, that was something entirely different. The newspapers picked it up pretty quickly, and soon they gave the killer a nickname that stuck, the Servant Girl Annihilator. Once that name started to appear in print, the fear spread even faster. People began locking their doors earlier, windows were checked twice before bed, family kept weapons beside their bed, but the worst part, the pattern started to change. At first, the victims were mostly servant girls, but soon, other people in the houses were being attacked too. In one case, a woman named Eula Phillips was sleeping in her home with her husband. Sometime during the night, the killer entered. He attacked Eula first. When her husband tried to stop him, he was beaten as well. The message was becoming clear. The killer wasn't just targeting servants anymore. Anyone could become a victim. By now, the city of Austin was on edge. Police began patrolling the neighborhoods all night. Groups of armed citizens started forming patrols of their own. Men walked the streets with rifles and shotguns. Some people even stayed awake until sunrise just watching the road outside their homes. The mayor himself reportedly joined the patrols. Rewards were offered for information. The case started getting attention outside of Texas. Newspapers across the country began covering the story. But even with all that pressure, the killer kept slipping away. Several suspects were arrested, but none of them could be connected to the murders. And then came the night that pushed the entire city into shock. Christmas Eve, 1885. While most of Austin was preparing for the holiday, the killer struck again. And this time, he struck twice in one night. The first attack happened late in the evening. Two servant women were sleeping in a small building behind the house. The killer slipped inside, grabbed an axe, and attacked both of them while they slept. The violence was quick and devastating. By the time anyone realized what had happened, both women were dead. But the killer didn't stop there. Later that same night, across the city, another home was attacked. A woman named Susan Hancock was asleep in her bedroom. The killer entered quietly, and he used an axe again. Susan was killed in the attack, and when another woman in the house tried to intervene, she was brutally injured. 4 victims, 2 locations, all in one night. And somehow the killer still managed to escape. No one saw him clearly, no one caught him leaving. It was as if he simply melted back into the darkness. After the Christmas Eve murders, the pressure on the investigators exploded. Austin wanted answers, and fast. Detectives chased dozens of leads. One suspect was a cook named Nathan Elgin. He worked in multiple homes around the city, and he knew the area well. At one point, he was confronted by police, but during the encounter, he was shot and killed. Some investigators later wonder if Elgin might have been the killer, but there was never enough proof. Other theories suggested the murder might have been someone who moved easily through the city at night. Maybe a laborer, maybe someone who worked late shifts. Someone who understood the layout of the houses and where servant girls usually slept. There were also rumors that it could have been more than one attacker, but most investigators believed it was one man. Then there's the strangest theory of all. 3 years after these murders stopped, another killer began terrorizing a city across the ocean, London. These victims were women, the attacks were brutal, and the killer was never caught. But his name became famous around the world: Jack the Ripper. Some historians have noticed eerie similarities between the two cases. Nighttime attacks, extreme violence, victims chosen from vulnerable groups. It's possible, though unlikely, that the same killer could have been responsible for both, but there's never been any evidence proving the connection. Still, it's a theory that refuses to disappear. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the killing stopped. No more break-ins, no more axe murders, no more victims. The servant girl annihilator simply vanished. Some people believe the killer died, others thought he left Austin, or was arrested later for some completely unrelated crime. But no one ever proved what happened. The identity of the killer was never confirmed, and the case slowly faded into history. Today, the servant girl annihilator is often described as America's first serial killer, a man who terrorized an entire city, walked through dark streets night after night, and somehow managed to disappear without ever being caught. Which leaves one unsettling possibility. The man responsible for all these murders may have lived out the rest of his life like anyone else. Just another face in a crowd, carrying a secret that no one ever uncovered.